And I was one of those very annoying people on Friday night. I'll be like, anything else needs to be done, I'm happy to cancel my plans and do it. No longer like that, but that was, one of the things I think that perhaps helped me in a way to show a lot of commitment.
So regarding your masters, they go well. You pass.
Yeah.
Of course. So where do you decide to work then? You've decided obviously you're going to go down the path of financial services. Where do you apply?
Well, I applied for all of it. And then if I may say, actually, I think looking back, that is a very good strategy because one of the worst strategy is you only want to work for a particular division for a particular firm. Then in that case, your success rate is either 100 or 0%.
Yeah.
Whereas if you think about the strategies of looking for a job, it's much more of a numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
So if you apply for 10 different organizations, and then I also mix them in terms of some of them is perhaps the best organizations in my view, but maybe the different divisions or the best divisions in my view, or the organizations that are in my second tier. So I applied for all of them, and I had, I think, lots of interviews. So that was also the learning process to perfect your answers to practice. And then I think I landed on my, the last interview that I had was successful, and that's how I got in.
Excellent. So you obviously work for one of the biggest investment banks on the planet, trillions of dollars under management, doing some of the biggest transactions in the world, most historical transactions, all of the above. So culturally now, you're no longer studying, like you said, so you're no longer exams, you're now in the working world. What's your first 2 years like? Were you on the graduate program?
Well, technically, yes. So that's a little bit of a story that we can share at another time. But I did join as an analyst. Right. So I think the first 2 years was very much, getting to understand the different components of the job. And then it's because that I'm in a client-facing environment, and then I think there was a lot of behavior side that needs to be picked up on as well. So that was only clear to me now looking back. I think if anything, I would probably pay a lot more attention to the behavior side of it. But I think the student side of me was like, let's get in, let's get these jobs done. And I was one of those very annoying people on Friday night. I'll be like, anything else needs to be done, I'm happy to cancel my plans and do it. No longer like that, but that was, one of the things I think that perhaps helped me in a way to show a lot of commitment. But I just didn't, that was how we were all raised, so we just thought that was the norm. So
what was the behavioral stuff that you observed that you needed to work on?
So I think it's much more about, so for example, how do you work with clients?
Right.
And then by the way, some of the studies have shown that these client-facing roles especially in asset management industry, that's one of the hardest to get in.
Right.
And I think that's precisely because, when you take a client out, for example, you got to be able to entertain in a way, order food, get some small talks, all of that you couldn't really learn from.
And there's no script.
Exactly. So it's harder to access that information. And that comes back to if you're coming from a certain background, it's easier for you. Whereas if you're coming from whatever background, that makes it harder to access. It's a lot harder.
So how did you figure it out?
I'm not sure I figured it out. I think there is a lot of test and learn, and but also in a way because that I was, not from the UK, that did give me certain leeway. People be like,
they forgive you. They're forgiving.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit more forgiving now looking back about some of the stuff that I've done. But at the same time, because you didn't do it intentionally, so people can't hold you accountable for it. But I think I've certainly done a lot of experimenting different things. For example, experimented with my accent. So, because we all grew up learning American accent,
yes.
right? Like as you would know. So when I got here, and people be like, awesome. That is not the word that we say very often with, the institutional investors. Right? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But then I started to kind of fake my British accent. That didn't, for a period of time, people thought I was from Australia or wherever. Fine. But I think it was just, my way of trying to navigate whatever that helps me. So there are so many of those small things that I wish somebody have decoded for me. And then I think this is where representation matters, because there aren't that many people of our background who have been through this. So I didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what was going on. So it just took so much more effort to get to something that once known is fairly straightforward. So I guess that's really where the work that you do, is really important, so that people can decode the process, understand it, and then that's really where we can really elevate a generation, hopefully, and make some differences.
Excellent. So considering the challenge you just mentioned, you still thrived in that environment. Am I correct?
Well, I'm still here.
So how do you get promoted then, based off of the fact that you're not, do you move away from client facing and then you now progress? What happens after the 2-year grad program? Where do you go next?
I stayed in the client-facing part, and then I think that now looking back, this is more evident that I have been very curious about the human minds.
Right.
So I think that was maybe what fundamentally helped me, and then that translates into my interest in psychology, because ultimately, we can all talk about lots and lots of numbers, and then being Chinese, we have always been on the technical side. But ultimately, it is really this kind of people-to-people connection that helps. So I was fascinated, for example, by how decisions are made at our client's side, how decisions are made at our workplace. And I think that curiosity really helped me to find a little sense of purpose. And then that's really where I have really navigated my way through despite some of that challenges. I think it sometimes does go back to what motivates you, the extreme fundamental question. It might not be evident, but that's perhaps what is consistent.
So you were determined to just, and was there also a real drive to be successful, like in terms of now? Because in theory, you've ticked the box academically. You're now in a role that's, one of the best in the world, let's be honest. So for yourself, have you now ticked the box? Like, have you still got this drive that I want to be a VP, I want to be a director? Is that still is that within you, or are you just trying to do a good job?
It's such a good question. I think as life events happen, that really give me different perspectives. So obviously now I have 2 children. That's such an enriching experience. And then now being the single child, I'm also the carer for my mom. That puts into a generation of us into a very distressful situation, effectively, because our parents are getting older. So I think that really gives me the perspectives that whose success was this anyway? Like this notion that we were told, especially in China, that's what everything is all about. So I think it's not that I don't pursue success, but that is much more about affirmation. I don't need approval anymore. I think that's perhaps what changed.
Powerful.
And then at the same time, by the way, I think a lot of people probably think in China, by the way, I've already failed. Like, how come I didn't change jobs to get,
Seriously?
3 steps up? Definitely. So, and then some of my peers, because of the pace of the market, they will be having bigger jobs. But I think that probably, looking back, for me, it's more this kind of sense of it's a small sense of a purpose, only because we are the first generation of mainland Chinese here. So we are defining this emerging leadership styles as we speak. And then to your point about where China is going, there is some value for us to be here and then to figure it out, and then perhaps to be the bridge between China and then the rest of the world. So that is not something, had I been a bigger job title, can provide me. And plus, it's so stressful living there. So I think now putting it all together, there is much more of a driving your own sense of success. And then I think that's really what matters to me.
And what is your sense of success now? What is success for you now in 2022?
I think partially it's the foundation of all the people that I care about, and then additionally it's also to understand how the how we work, you know, as I mentioned about the knowledge, and then this mission about understanding more of what makes other people tick. But I think ultimately, you know, I used to think this longest journey I took was from China to the West, you know, to the city of London. But actually, I realized this longest journey that I had was between the head and my heart.
Wow.
So, so I think, you know, maybe what the success looks like now is to understand, perhaps, you know, how can we bring it all together, and how you plays in your family life, the people that work around you, and then really don't lose sight of the ultimate goal, but also make, you know, everyday experience count as well. It's not just about the destiny, which is what I was, which it was an extreme version of that. Basically, that's the only thing that mattered.
And then, so with your role, obviously your level now, how are you? Would you say you're on a fast track? Like, did you do it quicker than you're supposed to do it, or did you kind of tick the boxes as expected in terms of becoming more senior?
I think it's relatively fast, I would say, but on the grand scheme of things, really looking back, it didn't matter. Like, you know, you get ahead 1 year or 2 years, but you're going to work for 40 years. Why? Like, really, where I am now, it did matter to me at the time. I'll be like, oh, I really want to get to this. Now I would be like, why? Like, it didn't matter that much. I think. So I think that's really where we are in terms of thinking about, you know, the workplace in a slightly different way than before, which was just, you know, as I mentioned, destiny.
Excellent. And what would you say at your current, in terms of your current career, what was your, other than the behavioral stuff, was there, when it came to becoming more senior, what would you say was one of the biggest challenges trying to get promoted to like a more senior level?
I think it's a very good question. I wonder this has something to do with more, and then you are not going to like this answer, but it's more about, you know, the bigger environment we're in. Are there enough opportunities here? Because one thing I've noticed was people, you know, of a similar level, like, you know, my peers in China, but there are, you know, a lot of peers, say, in the US, the market is bigger, the opportunities are bigger, and then they get promoted quicker. And whereas here, you know, the market is smaller, and then the opportunities are smaller, so it takes longer.
Yeah.
But that is really just a matter of time, and there's more of the bigger picture as opposed to what it talks about in your situation. Because I think when you get to the senior position, it really isn't just about, you know, working hard or anything anymore. A lot of the other factors come to play. It could be that, you know, people leave. It could be that, you know, the regulatory environment. So I think that there are so many more big picture stuff that at the same time, if we continue to invest in ourselves, then you can be luck ready. I think that's the right word for it.
Luck ready. I love it. Okay, and then in terms of so imagine if you take yourself, if you go back 15 years and you were to do the career again, what would be some of the things you would do differently to get to where you are today?
I think I would invest in relationships more.
Peer in terms of work or socially as well?
All of it.
Right,
I think maybe what I have done was very single-minded in terms of I just want to get the job done. So, and then I didn't have the self-knowledge to understand other people don't see it that way.
Right.
So, right, if there is you know, something urgent comes in, I will drop everything I have and then to do that. And then I will not force, because I didn't know they think differently. I would just assume they want the same thing, and I would grab them with me on a Friday night to work. And then that, now I started to see that I didn't see the different perspectives, didn't experience, didn't expectations, because I was just making the assumption that this is me, but also everybody else was like me. So it's the opposite of what I've said, which is where I got to where I am now. This is going to be an ongoing learning journey for me.
But then also the culture back then, though, if you think when you started, that was the culture. It was very...
For junior people, perhaps,
it was very laser focused.
Yep.
We wasn't as aware culturally about people being burnt out, being
Yeah,
overworked
precisely.
as today. So
That is very true.
So we forgive you. But then I think it's really important, because now when we're talking about diversity and
Yeah.
inclusion, there's just an awareness that I feel like we need to be, that we're on the journey of now, or at least on the road, because we wasn't on the road before.
Absolutely.
So where are you in your terms of the diversity and inclusion for, your impacts? Because you're senior, there's probably very few people that look like you at your level. So where are you in terms of making an impact for diversity in your organization?
I think there is both the organization but also the broader context. But to your point, I think people are on slightly different journeys. So for people, like the East Asians, I think we're perhaps further behind because people would think that we are doing well, and then it's not untrue if you look at the entry level data, and then a lot of the data is coming from the US, for example. So the East Asians will be one of the most likely people to be hired into big organizations. But I think when it comes to leadership, that's really where it's very, very different.
Yeah.
Right. So East Asians are not seen as having the leadership skills. So they're hugely underrepresented. They're very good at the technical side, very good at being medical doctors, if you look at those statistics. But senior leadership, still very, very few. And
Why
then,
is that, do you think?
and I think that is a perceived lack of assertiveness. And then that comes back to this loudest dog. So because we were told, not to speak up, and then people see this as a lack of assertiveness.
Right.
But it can be fixed in the sense that people don't have to see it that way, and we can define our own communication styles. But because, a lot of this is not being understood, and then people still label you as just lack of assertiveness, how can you lead in that situation? But the other element I would highlight is, for example, here, or a lot of the cases, people put East Asians and South Asians together, whereas this lack of assertiveness is much more East Asian. If you look at the South Asians, they're doing very well. So I think there's 39 CEOs for the Fortune 500. Vast majority of South Asians, they're not East Asians.
And when we say South Asian, just for the audience, what countries are we talking about?
Well, this is the thing. The South Asian, East Asians are very American, whereas here, as I understood, the Asians equal to South Asians, that would mean, basically the Sub-Indian continent.
Right,
so
right,
that
right,
would
right.
be, what that means.
Okay. So people like Satya Nadella at Microsoft, those kinds of...
Precisely.
Right.
Precisely.
So Lynn, it's been a pleasure hearing your story, and obviously getting the insights to stuff that probably a lot of people don't even know about, this fantastic, what's the word I would say, community of East Asians that are with us. And many people see people from afar, but you don't really know what they go through and what their stories are. Even on the outside, like you said, many people may perceive that everybody's successful, they're rich, they're good at maths, the stereotypes. But however, there's another part to it which you've brought to the table, and we are so grateful.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great fun.
Excellent.
That sandwich, I had a lot of great opportunities, because what the team I was in was called a partnerships team. So we worked with corporates.
Oh, right.
So what we did was, for our corporate partners, we worked with them to establish campaigns for their customers to come and use Avis. And so that then meant actually not only do we do marketing, but we also talk to the partners quite a lot. And so you get some interesting perks.
Forward.